Welcome, everyone. This is Pilot Needles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Terry Adwin
Hi, hi.
and Cinders.
Hello.
Hello there, and let us go find out what's in the news for this week. And we'll begin with, of course, in LOTRO, where we had a patch for Minas Morgul's little update that we had there.
Little patch.
A little patch to take care of a few things here and there. One of those items was to add a few little changes on the warden side and to take care of an instance that was giving us some trouble. The usual type of stuff you have the week after you release an expansion. Here we go. On the wardens, damage over time abilities have had their pulses increased by 2. The heal over times had their pulses increased by 1, and item set bonuses that affect damage over time and healing over time have had their pulses reduced to 2 plus 1, so that they would no longer give them as much. As essentially it was targeted against the throne set from being a bit of an OP item in there, and to move some of those pulses onto the basic to the warden. For crafting, Minas Morgul crafting guild quest components costs have been reduced for all guilds except for cooks. Of course, they didn't reduce them for cooks because that's what I am, right? Yep. The cooks have always had the headaches on any recipes, no matter what, I feel like, because you have to find about. Okay, I'm exaggerating slightly, but you have to sometimes find 10 different ingredients in order to get things together. So I think saying 6 is probably not an exaggeration on many of them. Rejuvenation potions and universal morale and power potions now have had the same 2-minute cooldowns on use on crafted potions as the minor, major, and greater potions of morale and power. And Minas Morgul armor and jewelry quest rewards now bind to character instead of to account. All of this quest reward gear now also has a minimum level requirement. The level 105 and 120 Valor packages now warn players that all contents are bound to character upon use. The Virtue Quest starting item delivered in Valor packages now has tooltips text indicating it's bound to character status. The trait point item delivered in Valor packages now has a different icon. Valor packages now have tooltip text clarifying how the contents will bind. Anvil gear has been changed to cost motes of enchantment rather than embers of enchantment. In Bjorning imbued first age weapons and carvings, Runekeeper imbued first age weapons, and Loremaster imbued first age weapons from the Valor level boost package will no longer identify with incorrect secondary stat bonuses. Instead, legendary item two-handed melee weapons will no longer identify with agility as one of the secondary stats. Now, I'm just wondering how much that affects my lore master, because I have a lore master that used the imbued thing in there. Does that? I presume that if you did it in the past, you're stuck with it or something. Probably. I guess I'll have to go and check that out at some point. Quests and adventure areas. The Tier 3 leading the charge deeds for Minas Morgul 3-player instances are now available through December 23rd, 2019 at 3 a.m. Eastern Time. The new Minas Morgul 3-person instances are now available through Tier 3 difficulty, because I believe they opened up with only Tier 1 and Tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tower dungeons in Minas Morgul City now work properly and start you at the correct location within each tower. Quest feast preparations stuffed whey bread can now be turned into As see Aseleth or the Cook's Guild leader in Minas Morgul. And players who have this quest underway will have their progress reset. Players who have already completed this quest are not impacted. The Prison of Ranuel completing um, Ethelguar, the fifth well instance on Tier 1 or Tier 2 now count for this quest. Right? Fixed an issue in the fifth well where Guaradel would die before the second phase of the fight. Oops. Fix an issue with the instance nothing for nothing, so it can now be properly completed. Fix an issue with the instance leave no one behind, so that Wiesnack appears at the proper time. The following Grey Mountains and Gladmere instances are once again available through Tier 3, the depths of Kizu Kala, Glimmerdeep, caverns of Throomfall, and Thickelgundu the Steel Keep. And added an objective to the lost lore of the Great Alliance to complete Chapter 12.2, The Council of the Kings, before speaking to Elendil, as he will not be available until after that quest is completed. Added an objective to the Lost Lore of the Great Alliance to complete Chapter 12.2. Okay, the Council of the Okay. And fix some rock placement, stuck spots, and a few other environmental placement issues in Minas Morgul content. Ethelguar, the fifth well, now lists the correct required discovery deed in the instance finder launch button tooltip. Well, that's good. Woe of Khan will no longer multiply on the Mordor besieged landscape. The floor and walls have been shored up in an area of the quest of the North Rama's hooks, and the Stable Master collection map has been updated to properly show the new areas.
Yay.
And known issues, the quest Trial of Despair and Trial of Death are currently unable to be completed. These will be fixed in the next patch. Oops. And
Well,
those,
you fix one thing and you break something else.
yeah. What else is new? The joys of software. Then let's head into the Beacon, issue 137, where we have on the top, it looks like something from Minas Morgul up there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is exactly, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, it looks cool and spiky. A little
Well,
spiky there.
a lot of Mordor looks spiky.
Well, you do have a point there. I guess that's why Sam said if you're going to find a tree in Mordor, then that one with the 1,000 very long thorns in it was the one that you'd expect to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. For the community spotlights, thank you to everyone who helped Team Standing Stone Game hit its $20,000 goal for Extra Life, and you could learn about their upcoming drawings for people who donated by clicking on the link. The Bearded Minstrel has put together 10 things you may not know about Mordor Besieged. And registration is now open up for Winterstock 7. And Winterfest on Crick Hollow is also starting to take band registrations for their event in mid-December. Songs for Another Age hits Langeville on Sunday. Well, I guess you'll have to be listening live in order to catch that one. And Hellfest takes place on Saturday, and never mind, that's already passed. So let's go to the Kin Hall. Lone Riders is a level 10 kinship on Laurelin that maintains their own blog about their adventures, shares screenshots, and more. And now for the weekly comment. What classic song in real life most relates to your main character?
Okay, so this was actually really easy for me because classic song has to be Queen's "We Are the Champions" for Terry.
That's a good one.
Followed closely by, also from Queen, Another One Bites the Dust.
I like that one too. So, those are great ones, Terry. So I had the interesting conundrum of trying to pick my main. Because I have both Cinders and Emerlina. So for Emerlina, since she's a guardian, I was thinking hit me with my best shot, or hit me with your best shot. Would be a good one for her. And then for Cinders, I would have gone with Ring of Fire. The Johnny Cash one.
Mary Rose was saying the same thing for her Low Master, Ring of
Yeah.
Fire.
I say, totally, especially if you're running Redline, you have a literal ring of fire for things to fall into.
Right?
It's amazing. Yeah, so those would be my two, depending on which one I had. So, right now my current main is M, and probably will eventually take over being my actual main. And so I'm going with hit me with your best shot.
Mhm.
Pine leaf.
Pine Leaf.
And
How
I have a
about
lot
you?
of trouble remembering enough of those. What would be a? Yeah, I'm sort of like trying to figure out what would fit my character.
Let's see. So would you do it for Pine Leaf the Warden? Are all of your mains
Oh
Pine Leaf
yeah, it has to be
Wardens?
Piney the Warden. Who else?
I just making sure that all of your mains across all of the things are um, wardens, rather than just assuming. I thought I would check.
That tends to be my main on servers. Yes. Oh
I
well.
don't know.
Citrus tries to come up with something. Let's head into the Fantasy
So
News.
I get to come up with Pine Leaf's character. All right, Google, here I come.
Yes. LOTRO Players News. Last week we had a lava barbecue for our episode 130. Yes.
We did, and it was awesome.
Yes. Joego has been posting some really neat 360-degree LOTRO screenshots on his Facebook page. And Yiki often can be found streaming LOTRO on his own Twitch channel, including special streams this month to support the Wounded Warrior Project. And Bloodborne has a longtime LOTRO streamer on Twitch with a mix of content all week long. And Stubabub Live recently celebrated a 1-year anniversary of streaming. So our screenshot of the week is Calastogi Kid. Calastogi Kid recently replied to us on Twitter with this amazing screenshot of Minas Morgul. You could find their Twitter page on the link, and yes, that is quite a shot of it. Not exactly a place you want to visit, though. But we have to.
Oh, that was an awesome screenshot of Minas Morgul.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I totally want to go kick butt. Of course, I tend to have different reactions to these sort of things than Pine Leaf does. Because Pine Leaf is like, yeah, I'm not sure I really want to go in there. And I'm like, yeah, let's go! Kill it all!
Well, yes, there is that. There is that. All right. And now let's head into our store sales. And what's on sale this week, Terry?
It's a Terry sale this week.
Whee!
We got 25% off shared wardrobe, cosmetic outfit slots, mounted combat trait specs, cosmetics, and mounted combat cosmetic slots. Select cosmetics now through to November 21st. Weekly coupon gets you a free Slayer D boost 60 minutes with coupon code SLAYIT, which is awesome. Also through November 21st. I just want to say when you're checking the cosmetics in the store, make sure it actually is only available in the store because a lot of what's in there can be purchased at the skirmish camp for mercs and few medallions. So always double check with LOTRO Wiki and your favorite cosmetic resource peoples.
Then let's into our site news, where Squirrel this week posted a Minas Morgul primer. And this is the current version, less updated for the 13 November pre-patch. Oh, it's last updated 13 November, just before the new patch went in. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And they say and he talks about where to start Minas Morgul, a 2 regions quest guide, because we have 2 regions in the whole thing. Gearing before entering Minas Morgul or avoiding the graveyard. And gear for Minas Morgul, but they are yellow edition. Level 130 and beyond, talking about essences, quest tokens, and reputation, and crafting stuff. And about level 130 instance gear. Scaled instances, 4-slot instance gear for previous areas, Grimredeet and consorts, Minas Morgul instances, crafting guilds, dailies in Minas Morgul, tips and tricks for dailies, and then, of course, the weekly and Ember rewards, and talk about various issues that they have on there. So Squirrel goes into all that in his primer on the Minas Morgul update. And Cinders, have you come up with anything yet?
No, but I have found a whole bunch of songs that come up when you go with like terms like poke and warden and
That's a dangerous road to go down.
it is, so I am no longer going down it. Although I did learn there are actually songs about wardens, but they're mostly talking about prison wardens, and I don't think
I
that's
had
really
a feeling
applicable.
of that.
So then I put in the search term responsibility, because he's like skirmish responsibly, right?
Right.
And you'll never guess what came back, right? Kids
What?
songs. And how to be responsible. So it's all about things like there's a whole Dolly Parton one where it like spells it out, and then it talks about doing things like putting on clothes, cleaning your room. And so I'm not sure all of those fit either. I was kind of thinking, and I was like, well, what about something like we didn't start the fire? And then I was like, well, Pine Leaf doesn't really deny being responsible for some of this stuff, so that doesn't really fit, even though wardens don't start the fire. Sometimes they do. Maybe something like slow burn.
Pilot usually doesn't, though.
No, he's not usually responsible.
I mean, he's usually not the instigator for anything. He just cleans up afterwards.
I need one of those. Hang on. Let me search for mom. Songs about moms.
The cleanup crew, yes. Oh, boy. Well, she does that. Let's head into our new player question. Oh, except that I believe Cinders has the new player question for this week.
Oh, I do have the new player question for this week. So it also ties to wardens, shockingly. So Sans and I both Aria'd wardens to 120, and it started a debate on picking the correct imbued weapon. So what I'm wondering is when selecting an imbued weapon from the Aria 120 package, what difference does it make in selecting items?
What difference does it? I thought
So,
that
like-
I thought it was based on your tree.
Well, so they have the tree, but then you have all of these different weapons. I mean, you could even pick a dagger. And you get to pick 2 of them, which is like shocking because most classes don't get to pick 2 imbued weapons.
Well, yes, but wardens have to because they get a javelin and a spear. or I mean javelin and another weapon. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I
So
already told you my choice.
so what Sans ended up doing is she ended up picking two from the same trait line. And I picked one from each trait line, from like blue and red. So
Yeah.
like, is there a better way to do it? Or is there like a based on if you typically play ranged as opposed to melee? Or like,
I would assume
what's the
that
difference?
it will modify which legacies you have, I would presume, because if you've got, the legacies that help a particular trait line. Now, of course, wardens, most of their legacies are rubbish anyway, so might not matter too much on that. But I think there are one or two, for example, that will favor the yellow line, for example. I think there might be one that relates to javelin of deadly force. And of course, if you're not in yellow line, it's a completely useless one because that's the capstone for the yellow line. So most likely it will change the legacies so that anything that might be only specific to that one particular line, you'll have those in there. But I would hope that if you chose red line, you would not get javelin of deadly force as one of your legacies, because it would be completely useless then. Now, as for whether to take them on two different ones or one, I would say if you keep on switching, and those are the only two weapons you're going to have, then you might want them on two different ones. But I chose the same line because I expect to be spending most of my time in blue because I die very quickly when I'm not in blue. And this
Okay.
was on Crick Hollow, where I tend to solo mostly. Actually, hold on. Take the thought. What am I talking about wardens? That's right, because I actually, when I was doing this, I was doing a lore master. That's right. Well, that's what I would do if I were on a ward. But since I was on a lore master when I was doing it, I took blue because I spent all my time on my lore master in blue in any case, because I do pet line on my main lore masters. So yes, I base it on whatever tree I plan to spend most of my time in. Now, if I split my time in two different trees, then I might consider splitting it as you did.
Okay. That would make sense. I don't know. And we had a debate, and we haven't played them enough to know if it actually made a difference or not. But
Well, that I can't tell you since I don't know what specific legacies each of you got.
I don't know either without walking in, I'll be honest.
All right. I'm sure we'll have a chance to discuss that at some point. Now, Terry Edwin, what did you do last week in LOTRO?
Well, Terry Edwin did more killing of all the things in Second Age Mortar. And when I say all the things, I mean, I
Yeah.
went into an orc camp and killed my way through it about 3 times because halfway through, Sans discovered that she hadn't picked up at least one of the things that we were after. So she went back without us. So we had to go rescue her.
Yeah.
Which was fun because it basically was one way of finishing out the Slayer deed, which, Second Age Mordor has a very interesting Slayer deed. It doesn't count like specific types of enemies, just it lumps them all together.
It does it in a similar way to what you do in the pre-area to Mirkwood,
Mm-hmm.
where you have something called head count, where you're supposed to kill a certain
Yep.
number of mobs for that.
Yep. Which is really cool because then you're not like, okay, I need this many more of this mob and this many more of this other thing.
Yeah.
And geez, I just need one more Sula kill to finish out this deed. No, you don't have to worry about that. You can kill whatever, and it all counts.
Yes, there is that. Now, when you get to Minas Morgul proper, it's the traditional type, and they did it, I think, in Mordor Besieged because you're only going to be spending 2 or 3 levels there anyway, most likely. So they didn't want to make you stay there any longer while the story is
in
starting to
theory.
go up ahead.
In theory, I have no idea how many levels Terry is going to be stuck there. In
Well,
theory, just 1 or 2. But yeah, so that was definitely another one bites the dust night because it was a lot of killing of things. We also met some really interesting Gondorian prince type characters. Saw a little bit of some drama going on there, which I found extremely fascinating. Probably way more fascinating than I should, because now I want to know more, and they're probably not even going to give us any more, and then I'm going to be sad. And then my other highlight this week is, of course, I've been talking about playing my Berg, and I mentioned last week that she was coming up on the epic battles, and I talked about trying to do them while AFK. Well, 2 of 5 battles completed while AFK, and that was the Deeping Comb and the Glittering Caves, both of which I completed while not doing anything because I started the battle and went into stealth and went AFK. And came back a little bit later to check in. Yep, still going strong. And I got encounter completions. I got 3 encounter completions on Deeping Comb by not doing anything. I did
crazy.
epic idling. It was awesome. And then I got 1 for Glittering Caves too. It was pretty funny. So yeah, and so I'm done in Rohan except for Fangorn dailies. So this is the first character in a long time that's actually doing dailies, because Sarissa is also the character. Yeah, my burglar is the character that I have well renowned on. So yeah. And weirdly, I discovered that even though she had kindred with like a bunch of different factions, she hadn't gone back to get the return to places. So I went back and got all of her returns that she needed. And she's also the character that I've spent money on the hurried and returning and whatever the other traveler is thingy. So she's got 5-minute cooldowns on her milestones and returns. So she's popping all over Middle Earth, which is a lot of fun when you're traveling between Helm's Deep and Durndingle and Gondor. Burglar and Gondor! Took the Tortoise Stone out of her pocket, so she's headed to 100 and really close because she's like halfway there from 99. She hit 99 this morning because I'm really super focused. This is my distraction to not play Minas Morgul content without the group. Because I really want to play through Minas Morgul content, but I'm holding myself back to the group. So instead, I'm doing Rohan stuff with my burglar, who will probably actually wind up being my second character through Mordor. But weirdly, I had never done the Fangorn dailies. Like, I never really got into Fangorn because when Terry was finishing up that area was right before Western Gondor came out to begin with, so I was kind of rushing to get to 95 and finish out all of the other stuff. And so I didn't spend time trying to get all of that rep because I didn't need it. Plus, at the time, the Huorn pets were a random drop through a box. It wasn't something you could just stack up a bunch of leaves for and barter for, which you can now. It's 375 leaves plus kindred, and Sarissa's really close to the leaf count, but not the kindred. But actually, it's really kind of relaxing to go into those daily instances and slaughter everything, or not, because burglar, she doesn't actually have to. But it's helping to finish out the Slayer deeds, because 2 of the instances rotate through what the enemies are. So, like, one day you might have orcs, and another day you might have dunlendings, and day 3 you might have wargs or wolves or something. So she's finishing out her Slayer deeds in addition to collecting rep with the Ents, who actually really were not all that annoyed. Like, she didn't get super annoyed by the Ents. She just feels really crowded by them when this forest. Yeah. But I'm loving Gondor. So I finished out Blackroot Vale on her and she's finished. She's into Ramadan, but she hasn't made it to. She hasn't met Jajak. She's like right there. Her next, I think, the next quest that she goes on actually ends up taking her to go meet Jajax, and I'm
Oh.
super excited for that because I know that they're going to get along really, really well.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
This is
he's
quite a
actually one of
pair.
my favorite NPCs in the game anyway, and I can just imagine my burglar's reaction meeting this guy. She's going to be like, "Yes, this is an NPC I can bond with." Like Terry found him amusing, and most of my other alts that have met him have been like okay, but I just know in my heart that my burglar is going to be like, this is the guy that I need to just spend time with and drink through Gondor with. Yeah. Cinders, how about you?
Well, I have sad news. I don't think I've played LOTRO since last Saturday.
Oh
At all, because I was either sleeping or helping Sans pack or making crazy trips. We made 2 trips to a makeup store, and neither of us really wears makeup. One of which was to return a sorry beeping thing that they forgot to take off because they were training somebody new, and so we turned around and we drove another hour to return it because we were tired of listening to it beep, and another hour home after we did some more shopping. So we did not get any of that done, and I could have done stuff yesterday, but I was tired after conferences that I didn't actually give because I just have to be there and nobody comes to talk to me. And believe it or not, I really like having people talk to me. So I get really like bored and sleepy when nobody comes to talk to me and I'm all by myself. Or essentially by myself because my child is doing other things. So, I got nothing done and I just kind of sat there, was like, ugh. But on the plus side, I believe I have found a song for Pine Leaf.
Oh, yay!
So I think it's a gospel song, and I'm trying to figure out how old it is. If it's called "If I Can Help Somebody." Now I did look at Sam Burke's, but by verse 3, it was not quite what I think is in line with Pine Leaf's character. So I really don't see Pine Leaf trying to be like the Pine Leaf character trying to be the dad for anybody. So
That'd be
so
difficult considering the gender.
so I was like, okay, so that's not really a great fit, but it was a great idea, Sam. So then but I did look it up because I was like, I wonder, I've not heard that one. But this one is all about like if they can do anything to help somebody, like they're gonna help them. So I was like, oh, that actually is pretty fitting because I don't think at any point if somebody goes, hey, Pine Leaf, can you help me? That Pine Leaf will be like, no, I can't help you. And like even with the craziest schemes that Sans and I have come up with, Pine Leaf is like, I'll try. I don't know how this is going. I'll try. So I'm thinking that one's gonna be a good fit, and it traces back on an album to the '60s. So I'm gonna go with it's a classic. It's probably older than that. But look it up sometime. I think the performer's name that I saw it under was Mahalia Jackson, known for gospel singing. So that's my classic song for Pine Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
Pine Leaf, how was your week?
Oh, my week. Let's then go into my main one, who headed into the Morgul Vale, and I reached level 125, and I ran the content up to the point where you get to the Filth Well, which is, I must say, one of the best named instances ever. Meaning most appropriately named. It's not exactly what I would call a good name, but it is certainly a fitting name for the place because. Ugh.
I'm going to interrupt just for a second because I think that's really funny because I had to read it like 5 times to figure out what you were trying to write because I was like, fifth well, like, is he trying to write like fifth wheel? Like, where's this going? Yeah, and then I was thinking about how like we talk about like pits of filth that people fall into. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was a really funny play on words that they did to have a filth well that you can reach.
Yeah. And I ran that instance, and it's a real nasty instance. I will have to tell you that. And the only reason why I eventually finished it was because after failing it at okay, I was level 125. I decided the first time, since I remembered the disaster I had in doing it during the Bulwer preview, I thought, all right, let me run it at level 123. And the boss still ripped me to shreds. I thought, all right, if I'm going to get ripped to shreds by the boss, let me rerun it at level 121, which is the minimum level you could run the instance. And I managed to kill the boss 2 seconds after I killed the boss. What I think the boss's dying blow left me in the day spa. So now the day spa in the filth well, as far as I could tell, at least the day spa where I was at the time during the boss fight, it I forgot whether it's instant death in the main part of the dungeon, but during this part of the boss fight, it's a very, very nasty damage that it does, but it's not instant death. And yeah, it left me in the day spawn. By the time I realized I was in there, it was, oh well. So I died right after killing the boss, but I finished the instance. And that was good. Yes.
Yay!
Yay. So I'm trying to be vague about it, since I'm sure that in a few weeks I'll be running it with Terry. And with Sans, I guess, also.
And in a few
And now
weeks,
my
hopefully, Sans and I will also be running it.
right, as soon as we get our characters first of all high enough level to do the new content in the first place, right? Or are you meaning another run you're doing with her with Ariad characters?
Well, it could be with the Ariad characters, it could be with you. I don't know. It depends on how scheduling works out for activities that we get to do over the next couple weeks.
Okay.
But I'm hopeful. I am hopeful.
Yeah, hopeful. My lore master reached the first half of Mordor Besieged. So I completed the first half of Mordor Besieged, and that's all nice and well. I reached a point which I call the interruption, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you reach that part of Mordor Besieged in there. So I got all the way up to that part. And then my honor warden quested near the fords of Isen and reached the lovely place, the Pit of Iron, and I've been doing quests within there, which is not exactly one of my favorite spots in LOTRO. Let's just say that. I sometimes think they should have called it the Pit of Despair, because that's how I feel like when I go in there sometimes. But this is for the complete Pine Leaf series, so I can't skip it. And that's it with what I did this week. So let's head into news beyond Lotro, where Darren Loremaster has written a poem on Osgiliath. Osgiliath, built in the days of yore, the citadel of stars so named, before foul shadows came to dwell and prowl the street, where once fair forms gather to talk and greet Gondor's days of strength, now long passed by, for Mordor's land is close, its power nigh. Now all its houses, shops, bridges of stone, destroyed and broken, evils once unknown from Minas Morgul came, who all obey the Dark Lord's rule, falling under his sway. High Gondor's power in its fair citadel dwindled away until finally it fell to lie in ruins. Though untainted stars still circle overhead, hard, bitter wars are waged between the Dark Lord and Gondor until one is vanquished to rise no more. Osgiliath? Its stones and shadows lie like giant bones bleached underneath the sky, like arms that rust and then crumble away. Osgiliath is abandoned to decay. Whee! We currently have 15 supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to join this illustrious parade of players and help support LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you'll find rewards, including a mention on the podcast of your choice, or even be a guest with us for an episode of LOTRO Players News. This week we did not receive any emails, but if you'd like to send us one, for example, suggest a song, you can send it to podcast@lotraplayers.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, the Players Alliance at Players Alliance, Lotra Players at Lotra Players, Arendis at Arendis, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, Sandwinda at Sandswinda, and Terry Adwin at Terry Adwin. And, of course, Cinders at Emeraldina. The Players Alliance has 2 live shows on Mondays at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have DDO Players News, and on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have Lotra Players News. You can join us for our live shows at lotraplayers.com/live. And that is all for tonight. And this is Piney Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.